We're on 7:06, so I would like to proceed, if I may, by welcoming you all to what we've called Masons at Work, presented to you on behalf of the presidents of the various boards and the committees of the District Grand Lodge of South Africa North. I am absolutely delighted to see how many people online. In line with the FREDA presentation, Zoom presentation, we've decided to run under the banner of the presidents. And what we're going to do is we're going to do our very best to put on a Zoom presentation every 7 to 10 days. I'm hoping the next one is going to be a Royal Arch discussion, but that will come soon. So on my behalf, of the president of the Board of Benevolence, Brother Chris Adams, on behalf of the president of the Committee of General Purposes, Brother Richard Moore, myself, Lance Epstein, I welcome you all to this, brethren, gentlemen, candidates, prospective candidates, entered apprentices, right worshipful brethren. I don't have a face for TV, and we are looking at the young Masons that are going to carry on the district and do what we hope we've done so well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Brother Mike Reinders, who will welcome you, and then you'll hand over to the presenters. Mike, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, worshipful Brother Lance. Welcome everyone. We're having a good attendance tonight. I would like to introduce you to the Assistant District Grand Master and President of the Board of Benevolence, worshipful Brother Chris Adams. And what he's going to do for us tonight is a short intro into Freemasonry. And without further ado, I would like to hand over to Brother Chris. Brother Chris, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here. I'm just about to share a screen.
While you're sharing that, Mike, would you like to give the brethren, the gentlemen, some headers for questions they wish to pose?
Oh yeah, before I forget, if there's any questions, please post them in the chat group, or you can direct them to me directly. After worshipful Brother Chris Adams is done with his intro into Freemasonry, we're going to be handing over to the District Grand Secretary, Brother Roland Dunstan, and then from there we're going to have a quick Q&A session if there is any questions. Thank you, Brother Chris.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Good evening, brethren. And I note there's a lot of senior brethren on this call tonight, and I'm overjoyed because if any of the ideas that I have in my presentation can help you guys with new candidates, new entered apprentices, please feel free to take from this presentation what you can. It's a presentation that we've done over many years. We generally do it at Park Lane, and we do it on a Saturday morning. We do it for a couple of lodges. It's been relatively successful, and it's just developed as we've been in lockdown. So again, some of the new Masons on here might have been on before, and you might recognize some of these slides. But let's just talk about where we are. A couple of pictures, and I normally put these up just as the room is settling down because generally people are coming in a bit late. So a picture of Freemasons Hall in London, which is our headquarters of the United Grand Lodge of England. Freemasons Hall in Johannesburg. And let's not forget, some of the people on here may never have seen this building before. And some of the people from the far distant parts of the country might not have seen it for a couple of years. We had a professional photography day a couple of years ago, and some of these pictures are taken by those guys, and I always like to include them because it gives you a sense of the majesty of the building. It also gives you a sense of some of the people inside the building, but this is one of the front doors which was donated by the other constitutions when this building was built. The stairways going up to the lodge rooms upstairs, lots of very ornate metalwork on the side of that, full of symbols, and you can spend many hours looking through this metalwork and finding out the symbols of Freemasonry. So generally by this time the room has settled down, and I like to use this photo, which is taken from one of the Masonic halls in the northern parts of our district, really as an illustration of what Freemasonry is about. And it's taking rough men, rough candidates through the process of Freemasonry and having a smooth finished product on the other side. And I think that's quite important to impress upon your candidates and upon your new Masons. The other thing that struck me in Freemasonry is when someone says, well, what are Freemasons? People will say, well, we're not a religion, we're not a medical aid, we're not a pension, we're not a business opportunity. And I've always found that a very negative thing to say. So if that's what we aren't, what are we? And it reminded me of a film, and some of you might remember at the party, where Peter Sellers is a trumpeter in an Indian regiment. And eventually he's such a bad trumpeter, he gets shot down by his own sides. And the quote that I'd like to use for this, for if the trumpet plays an uncertain sound, who shall prepare himself for battle? So if we are uncertain as to what we are, how can we go and move forward with the craft as to what it is? As my slide says, it's one of many virtual introductions to Masonry sessions, generally run at Park Lane. And the quote was used, quite interestingly enough, when President Obama was being criticized about his relationship with the European Union. And the relevance is twofold. Firstly, it's always possible that your own side would shoot you down. And secondly, representatives of organizations often sell in the negative by telling you what Freemasonry isn't instead of what we are. So what are we? And although you can see this on your slide, I'm going to read it because I think there's a lot of meaning in this quote. Freemasonry is kindness in the home, honesty in business, courtesy in society, fairness in work, pity and concern for the unfortunate, resistance towards evil, help for the weak, forgiveness for the penitent, love for one another, and above all, reverence and love for God. Freemasonry is many things, but most of all, Freemasonry is a way of life. This is a relatively new addition to my slide deck, and it represents a statue found outside one of the Masonic halls in the UK. And I think this is what Freemasonry does. It's deep down, there's a smooth, polished inner person, and Freemasonry helps remove that rough outer edge to define what we all are inside and what we should strive to be. So at this stage, we talk about the structure of Freemasonry, and we talk about what a lodge is, and a lodge is the basic unit of Freemasonry. If you take the basic unit of Freemasonry as being the individual Freemason, that's fine, I can agree with that, but the individual Freemason exists within a lodge. In our district, which is the Old Transvaal and some neighboring countries, we have about 97 lodges. And a lodge would equate to, I believe, to a rugby club in town or a football club. It's a club of like-minded people. Interestingly enough, those clubs have all got chairmen and secretaries and treasurers and physios and coaches, and lodges have the same. We have the master, the secretary, the treasurer, the wardens, and very similar in structure to a sports club. The district consists of a lot of clubs. So if you think about the organization of a provincial football or rugby championship, and I do use this analogy to sport because many of us would understand that, and many of the new candidates would understand that. And then finally, the overarching body is the Grand Lodge, which consists of lots of districts or provinces. Think about the International Rugby Union as being the overarching body in charge of rugby internationally. Freemasonry is universal. There's 6 million Freemasons worldwide. And interestingly enough, bearing in mind this is a United Grand Lodge of England presentation, the sun never sets on English Freemasonry. We have lodges in South America, the Caribbean, Europe, Africa, Southeast Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. And I guess many of those lodges got taken to many of those countries because of the colonial aspirations of England. But notwithstanding that colonial aspiration has disappeared, the lodges have remained, and those lodges are scattered all over the world. Not only are they scattered all over the world, but we have a rich history. This is a picture of the 300th birthday or the tercentenary of the UGLE at the Royal Albert Hall. There was 4,500 members at that event. And I was lucky enough to be able to be there. What was fascinating, there was 136 Grand Masters from Freemasonry all around the world. And that included 4 female Grand Masters from the orders of women Freemasonry. So that was quite a momentous occasion for the UGLE. What happens in South Africa? In South Africa, we're almost unique in that we have 4 different constitutions representing 4 different Grand Lodges. We have the Irish, the Scottish, the Grand Lodge of South Africa, and the United Grand Lodge of England. We belong to the Grand Lodge of England, which has approximately 200,000 members, although I'm led to believe from reading this week that we're down to 190,000 members, and we're part of the District of South Africa North, with approximately 800 individuals in 97 lodges. Freemasonry has been in South Africa for 250 years, and is as old as Johannesburg, in that it's been in Johannesburg for 130 years. One of the interesting questions that people always want to know is this Masonic money cycle. And it's where does the money come from? Where does the money go to? How do we decide who it goes to? Who controls that process? And those questions to us as Masons might sound quite interesting because we know where the money comes from. It comes from hard work and fundraising. Where does the money go to? Well, it goes to, in some cases, Masonic Charity, and I'll talk about that just now. And in other cases, non-Masonic Charity, and we'll discuss that a little bit further. How do we decide where it goes? That's also relatively easy. We work very hard for this money. Fundraising can be a lot of fun, but it's a lot of hard work. So we decide where it goes by due diligence, by looking at corporate governance of organizations that are getting contributions, and we make sure that that money is not going to be wasted. Who controls this process? Again, there's a strict process that goes through the Board of Benevolence, of which I'm privileged to be the president at the moment, and it gets ratified at the Board of General Purposes and the District Exco before money gets distributed. We talk about Masonic Charity, and that's an interesting concept because we do give subsistence grants to widows, indigent Masons, and orphans, and we do give educational bursaries to Masons' children. But before any of the new members start thinking about it, there are strict time barriers to that. So you can't sit here tonight and say, oh, I'm going to join Freemasonry, I'm going to apply for a grant, and I'm going to apply for a bursary, because that doesn't work like that. You've got to be a Mason for 10 years to qualify for a subsistence grant, and you've got to be a Mason for 7 years for your dependents to qualify for an educational bursary. That's Masonic Charity. Non-Masonic Charity can be anything. And if you look at the kind of fundraising we do, we have fun in fundraising. And I've been involved in many of these. 7 or 8 years ago, we ran a bike day for the Harley Davidson owners group. We've had a couple of shooting days. There's always the golf day floating around. We have a square and goalpost group on Super Brew, which is good fun. Doesn't raise any money, but it's really good fun. We've seen some 4x4 days. We've had some clay pigeon shooting days, which are just interesting because it shows that if you have an interest as a new Mason, you can develop things that turn into very successful fundraising. So this is where I encourage the new Masons to get involved, bring your interest to the fore, and all of a sudden you might find you've got successful fundraising and having fun and meeting new people at the time. And then one of my personal favorites, I think, is the whiskey and chocolate pairing, and that's been run by West Brother Simon Nutten more than a couple of times, and it really is an absolute success. We have a big box and dine that's been running for 35 years and raises more money than most of the other charity events put together. But really, it's all about having fun. It's about meeting people, and it's about working to get money out of your guest pockets to contribute to Masonic and non-Masonic charity. One of the things that people say is that you all look after yourselves, and that might be true in a case, but it's not always true. And we do contribute to all sectors of society. And this is a helicopter, a London Air Ambulance helicopter, on duty at a terrorist attack in London. And you'll notice at the bottom of that helicopter, that helicopter was donated by London Freemasons. The square and compass, the sign of the Freemasons, is on the body of that helicopter. And to my knowledge, they've contributed, I think, 3 in London of those air ambulances. This is the latest big donation, also in the UK, a high lift vehicle. Very important after the Grenfell Towers disaster. And if you look in the green square, you will see that this is one of the 2 vehicles donated by London Freemasons. We talk about non-Masonic charity, and this is a list. It's not updated yet. It needs to be updated. And I keep forgetting to do this. But it's a list of the type of organizations that we have donated to as this district. And I think we are now up to nearly 30 million Rand in the last 26 years. But what's very interesting about this list is it caters for all sections of society. The Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, Guide Dogs, Cancer Research, Childline. Childline came in twice, actually. Reach for a Dream, the Children's Hematology Oncology Cancer Clinic. There's a breast cancer donation in there. There's a head injury donation in there. There's donations to schools. And in recent years, we've modified those donations shortly from being cash donations to being physical donations. So you'll see the Haven in Pretoria, Mothwa MedStep Clinic. At that clinic, we actually built a step-down clinic, which allowed that organization to start generating income and be self-sufficient. Oliver's House, we built 2 classrooms. So there's been a number of physical donations. And this money is all generating by the fundraising that I speak about. One of the other common issues is about Freemasonry and religion. Freemasonry is not a religion, but that doesn't mean that we haven't had religious leaders as Freemasons. And if you look there, there's religious leaders from all sectors, from the Muslim faith, from the Hindu faith, from the Jewish faith, and obviously Christianity. So your religious belief should not preclude you from joining Masonry. And another favorite quote of mine is that Freemasonry is a brotherhood of man under a fatherhood of God. So how do you get involved? And I guess I'm talking to a select group of people on this presentation now, but by being here, you've taken a step in the right direction. Find out more, but don't find out too much. It'll spoil your Masonic journey of discovery. Talk to friends or relatives that are members. And that's interesting because now we in an age of social media, and not everyone who comes through our doors has friends or relatives that are members. And that's why we have these kind of introductions to Masonry, to be able to talk to people who haven't been exposed to Masonry in the past and who want to know about it. Another thing that you need to understand is not everything on the internet is true. You've got to have the support of your family, because we will interview your partner before joining. And again, can you afford it? We don't want the family suffering because of the cost of Freemasonry. And Freemasonry is not free. There's annual subs, but I'll get to this later. And you're going to spend money every time you go out, whether it's for dinner, a charity contribution, or a drink. This is an interesting photo, and some people will laugh at it, but Freemasonry is not a sprint to the finish. It's a lifelong journey. And the photo on the left is someone winning 100 meters at the Olympic Games. And the photo on the right is someone getting a comrade's green number after running comrades successfully for 10 years, even though it took that particular person 15 years to finish it. But the message on this slide is that Freemasonry is not a race. It's a journey, and it's a lifelong journey. Almost finally, you're in good company here. There's a job here. It's your job to make that company a better place for you, for me, for society, and eventually for humanity. There's been some famous Freemasons, and some of you might recognize some of these chaps. Top left, Phil Collins. Top right, Rick Wakeman. Bottom right, Lionel Richie. But quite frankly, the most famous of the Freemasons that I can think of is that little chap in the middle. It's the little Masonic Freemasonry Cares teddy bear. And over, I think, 250,000 of these have been handed out in the UK to kids who find themselves in accident and emergency wards. And you can see at the bottom left, some of the brethren handing over some of these teddy bears. And the thing is that these kids come into hospital, they're scared, they're sick, they're sore, and they get given a teddy bear. And it calms them down, and they can point out to the doctor where it hurts. And this has done more for Freemasonry in the UK than many, many other initiatives. Just a teddy bear. Interesting. You're also in good company. 200 Freemasons have been awarded the Victoria Cross, which is actually 14% of all recipients. And if you look in this slide, going from the left, you've got Dr. David Staples, who's the CEO of UGLE and now the Grand Secretary. You've got Sergeant Johnson Beharry, who was awarded the Victoria Cross, and that's brother Johnson Beharry, who was awarded the Victoria Cross in 2004. On the right of the stone, you have His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent, who is our Grand Master. And the young lady on the extreme right is Emily Draper, who carved this Victoria Cross memorial stone. And if you get to London, you'd be quite impressed to know that this is the only piece of stonework in the entire building which has been carved by a lady stonemason. To bring it home a little bit, there's lots of famous South African Freemasons. And I'm sure if you look through that list quickly, some of you or all of you will know it, or recognize at least one or two of those names. But many of them were early presidents of the South African Republic. If you're more sporting inclined, you'll know that Manchester City wear what I call a Masonic blue strip. And that's because in the early 20th century, So that was about 1918 when they were playing in the English League. They had financial difficulties and they were bailed out by Freemasons financially, and they still wear the Masonic blue shirts today. Just a slide on what Freemasonry costs. There's an initiation or joining fee, there's annual subscriptions, there's a charity collection at each meeting, there's a charge for dinner or the meal and a cash bar. You do need a dress suit or dark suit and bow tie or black tie. You would be expected to participate in lodge charity functions and social functions. And most lodges have an annual ladies' night where wives or partners are taken out for dinner. I'm going to leave you with this quote, which is also a sign on the wall of one of the Masonic temples in the north of our district. And I'm going to read it again. Brotherhood. Masons come from all walks of life. We are plumbers, professionals, salesmen, and CEOs. We are also brothers. When you become a Mason, you become part of a brotherhood of men committed to family, engaged in ongoing personal growth, and providing care for others and families in need. While our backgrounds and interests may be diverse, what binds us together are shared values and a desire to have fun, do good, and build bonds that last a lifetime, making good men better. Brethren, thank you. I haven't been able to see any of your faces, so many of you may be asleep, but thank you for listening. It's been my privilege, and I wish you all well on your journey. Many thanks.
Thank you, Worshipful Brother Adams. Before we move on to Brother Roland, perhaps while your presentation is still fresh in everyone's memories, I've got an anonymous question that came in. On page 12, where your picture on page 12, the question was, when you say rough to smooth, what does that mean? I think if you could perhaps just elaborate a bit more on that before we move on to Brother Roland. But it's on page 12.
So there's two references to that actually, and one is on page 12 and the other one is on page 8. The page 8 is the picture where we've got the rough wall and the smooth wall with the Masonic symbol in the middle. And what we do generally, I believe, is we take through Freemasonry, we turn rough stones into smooth, polished stones. And in our lodges, and the new Masons or the candidates won't understand this yet, we have two things called the ashlar. One is a very rough piece of stone, and the other one is a very polished, smooth piece of stone. And I think what we're doing is we're refining the roughness of human life from each other into landing up with a smooth, polished, valuable, contributing member of society. And I guess in many cases that's true. You see people who don't have the ability to public speak. You see people whose social graces are maybe not as good as they could be. And through meeting with like-minded men, a lot of those aspects tend to move towards a much more refined, much more polished product. And I'd like to think that would be a good explanation of what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Worshipful Brother Chris, for your thorough explanation. And thank you. Your presentation was immensely interesting, and I think everyone in attendance appreciated that. I would now like to introduce everyone to the District Grand Secretary, Brother Roland Duns. And without further ado, I want to hand over to Brother Roland.
Good evening, Mark. Thank you for that. Gentlemen, ladies, if there are any out there, we are not totally to the exclusion of letting ladies in the front row at times. And brethren, what I'm going to do and what I'm going to talk about this evening is building on what Chris has already put forward. That's a concept of what is Freemasonry, and maybe what I can do is add a little bit more of an explanation to the concept of this rough to smooth issue. But before I do continue, can I just ask, please, everybody to mute their microphones just so that there's no interference coming through while I am doing the presentation or the talk? And I promise you there will be time to ask questions after the slideshow. Freemasonry, where does it fit into your life journey, or what is Freemasonry? That's the question that's being posed here. And I want to change tack here and not seriously or not so much talk about Freemasonry, but just talk about life in general. Life is a process of living and learning, and the way you learn is through experience. You as an individual, and I'm talking to everybody here listening to this talk tonight, you're a result of all of your interactions that you've had in your life. Each interaction shapes you in some way, small, big. Some have big impacts, some have small impacts. There are various challenges that you might face, but every interaction you have with people or challenging times has some sort of impact on your life. So the Masonic journey is one of self-discovery, aided and accompanied by like-minded individuals who are experiencing their own journey. Masonic principles of brotherly love, relief, and truth are expounded in Masonic literature and ritual. And oh my goodness, no, he said the word ritual. What does that mean? Are we out there dancing naked around the moonlight or something? No, not at all. Masonic ritual is a set of plays. And in these plays, we tell stories. And each of those stories have lessons. And this is where those principles of brotherly love, relief, and truth come out, is through these plays or these talks that we present. As an individual, how can you not be affected through exposure to this way of life? And there is a lot of exposure to it. However, in order to be receptive to these Masonic teachings, you need to have achieved a certain level of personal individual growth and development. And Freemasonry only really starts at a certain point. And I'm going to take you through that. I'm going to take you through it by talking about a little chap called Abraham Maslow. Now, why would I chat about Abraham Maslow? Because Abraham Maslow was an American psychologist who formulated the concept of the hierarchy of needs. And he formulated this hierarchy of needs in order to explain human motivation. He lived from sort of 1908 to 1970, which means in terms of the psychologists who've really had an impact on our lives, like Freud and Jung and those sort of people, he's relatively new to the block, or he's the newest kid on the block. He postulated 8 levels of needs, and the latest only coming very much later in his life. And if you want to, these can be broken down into 5 subgroups or 6 subgroups or 4 subgroups. But for tonight's talk, I'm going to break it down into 2 subgroups. And those will be talking about the deficiency needs and the growth needs. And hopefully at the end of this, I'll be able to tie this all together nicely into the concept of where Freemasonry fits into the whole picture. So we start off with your deficiency needs, and these are characterized by physiological needs, which is air, food, water, shelter, and believe it or not, sex. And if you don't believe me, just stop breathing and tell me how long that lasts and how that works out for you. I'm not sure it will last too long. I'm pretty sure your body will demand oxygen very soon after that. When you go into food and water, just cut out food and water for 3 days and see how you feel after that. These physiological needs are defined, that these are the basic drivers of human beings. Then coming after that are your safety needs, and safety needs talks about personal safety, emotional safety, financial safety, your well-being, your physical well-being. Followed closely behind by social belonging needs. And social talks to family, friendship, and intimacy. And then you talk about your esteem. And your esteem needs are broken up again between your self-confidence and your respect from others. Respect from others talks about your status and recognition. Is how are you motivated, or what are your needs for personal, your recognition from colleagues or friends? Whereas self-respect comes to your self-confidence, your independence, and your own personal freedoms. And then from there, we enter into the realm of what we call the growth needs. And these start with your cognitive needs, your pursuit of knowledge and understanding. There's a yearning for knowledge here about yourself or about relationships. Like, for example, most people sort of get married and have children, and they start to learn the dynamics of a relationship and the dynamics of raising children in this environment. And then the next level, and all of these needs build on top of each other. That's why they call it the hierarchy of needs. You can't jump from the bottom to the top in one easy go. You need to go through this process of developing these needs. Aesthetic needs talk to pursuit of beauty and creativity. This is where, and I'll tie this back into the concept of taking rough men and making them smoother. There's a sense of refinement when you start realizing your aesthetic needs. The appreciation of fine art, of music, of refinement of who you are in your own personal space. Then we get on to the self-actualization needs, achieving personal potential. There's a little expression that goes with this. It says, what a man can be, he must be. Self-actualization could also potentially be pointing around your destiny or your responsibility to a higher purpose. Something that is not, a responsibility is something that is not directly linked to your own desires, even though this is actually a need within yourself. You might not recognize it there. And then the final one, and this is the one that Maslow sort of recognized very much later in his life and added it to his hierarchy of needs, is the self-transcendent need. And this talks to giving oneself to something beyond oneself. Let me try and explain that. There's a concept of maybe charity or altruism. And altruism and charity is not just giving money to a charity, not being a checkbook beneficiary, but actually being involved and giving part of your spirit or your soul to someone else who needs it. And then there's a spirituality component of that. And that is, what is your relationship with God? And Chris said it in his talk. He said Freemasonry is not a religion, and absolutely not. Freemasonry does not offer you absolution, does not offer you an eternity in heaven, or damn you to a lesser place should you not follow a certain creed. But what Freemasonry most certainly does, is it drives this sort of behavior, is it encourages and pushes you to explore your relationship with God. You know him as well as you ought to, and where will that journey take you? Freemasonry then fits into this gap between your growth needs and your deficiency needs. It exposes you to the pure principles aimed at making you, to pure principles aimed at making you question your actions, your teachings, and morality. You are a product, and again I say this because I said it right up front, you are a product of all your interactions. Even today, by attending this talk, you will, to some small degree, be changed. The exposure to Freemasonry takes you from the rough person to the smooth person through the Masonic teachings, through the teachings of morality, through the teachings of honesty, of giving to others through charity. The three core Masonic principles: brotherly love, relief, and truth. Again, come back to taking a rough man and making him smooth. Freemasonry is a way of life. Freemasonry making good men better. Ladies and gentlemen, brethren, thank you. That is my presentation, short and simple. And I'm sure there's some questions. Back to you, Mike. Thanks.
Thank you, Brother Roland. That was most informative and very, very thorough. Again, I think a lot can be learned through these talks that we're having almost weekly now. I always, say, you can never get too much Masonic knowledge, and this is just merely scratching the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to be discovered. Brother Roland, while you are still fresh, just after your presentation, if I may direct another question to you. This is an interesting one. Also came through anonymous. What will Freemasonry do for me? I am dedicated to helping those less fortunate, and then what happens at a meeting. But I think you did cover that last part. So if you could maybe just elaborate a bit on what can Freemasonry do for me?
I'm going to turn it around. If you are dedicated to helping others and providing a platform for other people to help them and grow them, then the question was, what can you do for Freemasonry? And I'll come back to this question again, this concept again. Freemasonry practices brotherly love, relief, and truth. Relief and charity are the same thing. But the reality is, if this is something that you're passionate about, I think this is a platform where you will be able to actually give more than what you're supposed to, than what you can get. And then one of the concepts of Freemasonry, that personal journey, that lifelong journey, Chris alluded to it in his talk of, it's not a sprint, it's a journey. It really is a lifelong journey. What do you want to get out of Freemasonry that you can't put into it to begin with? So I quote John F. Kennedy, and I'll change it slightly: ask not what your country can do for you, or ask not what Freemasonry can do for you, but ask, in that case, what you can do for Freemasonry.
Thank you, Brother Roland.
Mike, there's a hand up from Techno F1 that I can see. I don't know if he has a question to ask.
Let's see. I'll hand over to him now. I would just like to make another mention. We have got a new mate brother of 2 months from Mossel Bay in attendance this evening. My brother, if you would like to say hi and unmute yourselves and tell us how the weather is in Mossel Bay.
You scared him away, Mike.
Sure.
There's obvious.
Actually, Mike, he was my candidate here at St. Blaise, and he's a very shy, reserved guy. But what a wonderful fellow he is. Really super guy.
Amazing.
No problem. Bye.
Then we've got also a interesting and perhaps a bit of a technical question, and we've got the district grandmaster designate in attendance tonight. Very worshipful brother Chris van Galen. So the question is as follows. I'm just curious about lodges in the Scottish Constitution or the American lodges, where there are 33 degrees. How does that translate to English Constitution lodges? Very worshipful brother Chris van Galen, if you wouldn't mind helping us out with this one.
Good evening, Mike, and good evening to everybody. Thank you. You left the technical question to me, wouldn't you? But I'll answer as best as I can without necessarily having prepared for it. What I would like to very briefly indicate is that there are two rights within Masonry, the English rite and the Scottish rite, of which, yes, the question alludes to the fact that how does the Scottish and the American necessarily integrate with respect to the 33rd degree? Well, in English, I can answer categorically, we have but 3 degrees. You've already made mention of them: the Entered Apprentice, the Fellow Craft, and the Master Mason. And necessarily that follows on with various independent orders and progressive degrees. Should you wish to choose that particular rite, in which you're able to then ascertain the 18th, progress to the 30th, and should the lot befall you eventually secure the 33rd degree, that of an Inspector General, such as myself, certainly available to yourself within the English Constitution. But that falls under the Supreme Council as far as the additional orders are concerned. So I don't really have a further answer other than the fact that the English Constitution necessarily has then the ancient and accepted right to the Rose Croix, which gives you that opportunity of being able to pursue that particular avenue. If that answers the question, otherwise the brother's more than welcome to touch sides with me, and I'll be happy to expand upon it. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very worshipful brother Chris. To the person that asked that question, you're more than welcome to engage brother Chris van Gaalen personally. If you want to send him a personal chat, I'm sure he would love to engage with you further. Is there any other questions while we've got the privilege of having these senior brethren with us to help us answer these questions? Oh, Andrew White. Ask away, my brother.
Okay, I'm just trying to unmute you.
Please, oh, sorry, brother Andrew, to interject. Brethren, just remember that we have got non-Masons in attendance again tonight, so please just bear that in mind with your questions and answers. Sorry,
no
brother.
problem. I just, because we've formulated on building our lodge on a certain group of people, being bikers. So while our president, national president, Lance Epstein is here, in the interest of the younger members, maybe Lance can just give us a little chat about the widow's sons and how they fit in. I think it'd be great. And I just put you on the spot, Bruce.
I wanted to ask the question myself.
Brother Andrew, 1-0. Brethren, yes, quite simply, we talk about the social aspect of Freemasonry. And in 1998, a number of Masons in the United States of America and North America, Canada, realized that a number of them were riding motorcycles, and why not start a fraternity of bikers doing exactly what we do in Lodge? Take good men, make them better, and the social aspect and the charitable aspect. And we in South Africa started the Widow's Son South Africa in 2010. We are now approximately 140 members. We do have lady members, but they are not Masons. There are 5 chapters: Western Cape, the Free State, the East Rand, where Brother White comes from, and I won't say any more. There's a Central chapter, and who've I missed out? I think that formulates it. So what we do is we try to get together as often as we can, and as chapters we ride together on a Sunday, and most of the time we look at doing charitable work. While the lodges have been closed, funny enough, we have been riding. Social distancing, of course, helmets on, stay apart, and in small numbers. And we've been delivering food parcels to various homes and other charitable organizations that need our help. So if you are a biker and you are a candidate, or if you are a Mason already and you have a bike and you're interested, I've posted my email address, and more than willing to chat to you and come ride along. And if you're not made to be part of a club, come ride along. I can see the past assistant district Grand Master with us, Colin Robinson. He's a member of a Harley group, trying to swing him over, but that's what I call WIP, work in progress. So I hope that answers it for you. Any questions I'd gladly take. At the same time, I acknowledge that through the Widow's Sons, we have a number of members from the Free State that have joined us, which is absolutely wonderful. And it just simply shows you that what the Widow's Sons and the biking fraternity has done. And we're all interconstitutional, so they're members from all 4 constitutions. And I suppose I need to keep that short and sweet. I hope that answered for you, Brother Andrew.
Is Techno F1 online still?
I can see he's muted, but I think on the chat, Mike, he's just extended greetings, hearty fraternal greetings from Port Harcourt Lodge, number 3881, on the roll of the United Grand Lodge of England, the District Grand Lodge of Nigeria. So we do have a guest from Nigeria here, from an English Constitution Lodge. As I say, the sun never sets on the UGLE. Thank you, Mike.
So true. Thank you, brother Chris. With that, again, thank you, everyone. It has been so nice spending this time with you. I hope we could answer most of your questions. And with that, I would like to thank you, say good night, and hand over to worshipful brother Lance Epstein for the final words. Thank you.
Brethren, Gentlemen, I thank you most sincerely. The numbers speak for themselves. We are going to do this on a regular basis. We have to be mindful that the candidates, prospective candidates in waiting, we're very limited, but we're certainly going to bring them onto Zoom chats, even if they may be social, understand what they do and what makes them want to become a Mason. You might have noticed in Chris Adams' presentation, there was a photograph, and there was a photo day by professionals. And funny enough, the one photo he showed, I actually purchased, and I have proudly up in my house. So, you know, Masonry is never ever far from me. We're going to do a webinar when we're going to interview the third Grand Principal, excellent companion, Vaughan Williams, in the next week or so. We will post that. We're also going to do a talk on the charge after initiation and the meaning thereof. If anyone has any ideas, and I can see there are a number of comments and a number of chats and how much more we need to do and discuss, particularly while we closed, please feel free to send me an email, make a request. I can assure you we'll come back to you. And if it's not the exact topic, we'll find a topic. In closing, there are far too many esteemed brethren for me to thank. I thank you all as brothers, as gentlemen. And in closing, I'd just like to ask a question. Brother Adams, the photograph of the chap in the comrades, do we know who that was?
Yeah, it was Wally Hayward, Lance.
It wasn't you.
It was Wally Hayward.
All right, because I know you've got All right. Brethren, I'll just let you know that Chris ran the comrades a number of times. It is a journey, as he says. He certainly doesn't have the physique he had then, but an accomplishment where he has his personal number still reserved for him. And it just shows you that comrades, Masonry, it's a journey. It takes time. It takes learning. And you're going to hear this cliche time and time again. But what you put in is what you get out. And I'll leave that for you to work out. So if anyone has anything else to say, I'm going to bid you a good night. Please watch out for the next Zoom presentation. I don't know if Very Worshipful Brother Chris would like to say anything in closing. We've already put him on the spot, but I thank you all most sincerely for joining us.
Thank you, Lance. Yeah, I would like to say to you guys, this inaugural chat this evening, long may it continue. I look forward to the topics going forward. I'm really pleased to see so many of the senior members of our district online tonight, and more especially prospective candidates. We look forward to joining you and your team in putting together the next presentation. So well done. Till next time, take care.